Hello everyone! For my first video in a very long time, I thought I'd play some Subway Builder, a new game that just released a few days ago. I downloaded it yesterday and played the Honolulu map basically all day. So I've loaded up a new map of my home city of Washington, D.C. I thought I could start a series of building a new metro network for the nation's capital. And I'd love it if any of you would like to follow along with it. The game is very simple. Your goal is to connect where people live to where they work on both light and heavy railways. You can see where people live and work by checking the demand stats, which show where people live and work as these little gray circles. The bigger the circle, the more people live or work there. Okay, so wow, yeah, this goes out really far, so down to like Woodbridge in the south. In terms of building a route, probably want to hit like that Roslyn-Baltimore corridor with a lot of people. I don't really know about like where to go in terms of going out more west, but if we look at the workers, there are some in Roslyn-Baltimore, but it's really just like dense, mostly downtown DC here. Here's me building a line between downtown DC and the Roslyn-Baltimore corridor, which I decided to extend down to the Shirlington area after spending a little bit more time looking at the demand stats. I know it may be hard to see what I'm doing because of how fast the video is playing, but basically I went between demand stats and building to determine where to put all the stations, and then I just connected them with rail. Alrighty, nice. There we go. So it looks a little bit weird down there with the like squiggles, but I guess whatever you can do to avoid the buildings. For reference here, if you want to build your track going through a building, you do have to demolish the building, which can cost anywhere between about a couple $100,000 to tens of millions of dollars. Alrighty, time to make a route for this new line that we've just built here. What should we name it? We could name it the Orange Line because the northern half of this looks like the real life Orange Line. Probably just do the 1 because we're not recreating the real DC Metro here. And 1 is nice, clean, simple. Here I just make the route and buy some train cars to assign to line number 1. Alrighty here, so play, and we can see the train car on Route 1. It's beautiful. Finally have an operating route here. Probably gonna rename all of these stations. It is very cool here that you can see the train car actually going along the route. This little dot that you see and the many more that you're gonna see after are examples of quote-unquote pops, which represent people taking your train as well as getting off at the station and walking to their home or work. So now when we look at the demand stats, you're going to see a lot of the circles have color, and that's because we now know what form of transit they're using to get to or from work. Blue is using public transit, red is using a car, and green is walking. Okay, I mean, at least we have a couple of purple circles, and purple is a mix of walking and driving, so blue and red. I was thinking about how I could possibly optimize this new subway line, and I decided to look at some of these sharp turns. I noticed while watching trains go by that they slowed down quite a lot on some of the curves, so I decided to look at the speed and find some curves that I could realistically change. I stumbled upon this little chicane-like set of two curves and decided that I could optimize it. What I ended up deciding to do was take the train tracks on a route to the right of the original path that would make it a lot more like having just one big, much softer turn and less of having two really sharp turns. I also messed around with trying to make it a little bit cheaper by shortening the path, but it ended up costing around $50 million. Shortly after, I rerouted the line number 1 to take this new path and deleted the old tracks. Alright, there we go. Route number 1 now has a slightly better routing. And let's look at our profitability here, because it was running the whole time that I was doing that. So, we are making profit, at least. I mean, like, not that much, and we're losing it some hours during the day, but it's progress at least. Okay, so if we look at the station stats now, we have a lot more passengers. Like, 4K is the worst station. So we, I would say, are doing pretty well at this point. I then began planning for possibly a second line, because I still had more than half of my starting cash left over, and I thought we could expand our network. I decided on attempting to capture as much of the population that lived north of DC as possible and bringing them down into the DC area, eventually possibly extending it south and into southern Maryland or Virginia. Alrighty everyone, get ready for another building spree. Anyways, I then made the most creative next route name ever. Route number 2. And I made it orange because, well, I thought it was the color of the Maryland flag, and this is a route almost exclusively in Maryland, with the exception of a few stops in DC, so why not? I then added all the stops onto the route and let the game run so that I could see some ridership statistics. Alrighty everyone, I think it's been a very fun episode. We've made a lot of progress here, building 2 new lines. And in case you're wondering, the orange line now has a couple thousand riders per station on average. So, overall, it was a very successful day, and I hope to see you in our next episode.